Much before you had Instagram, much before you had Facebook, she had an entertainment site that gave you all the news, all the tea, all the tea, all the tea that you wanted about Bollywood and everything more. She's somebody who's redefined entertainment and someone who essentially is not just a content creator, not just somebody who's a businesswoman who's redefined her field, but today she joins us amongst the many hats that she wears in the capacity of an author. It gives me great pleasure and privilege on behalf of the I.I.M.U.N family to be able to welcome Miss Malini Agarwal. So, Malini, firstly, thank you for doing this. I know you've been on a whirlwind tour of talking about your book, doing 100 things, and yet you made it out here in order to talk to young people. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and this is the future right here.
Yeah. You know, I've been talking to them and I've been talking to school children right from the start of the day, and when I ask young people saying, how many of you want to make content? Just going to ask this batch as well, how many of you want to, irrespective of your profession, make content on the internet, or already you make content on the internet? By a show of your hands. There are already so many people who are aspiring to make content. My question therefore, Malini, is students don't want to pursue degrees. Sometimes they want to start preparing content. I know lots of young people from I.I.M.U.N who are now popular content creators who've left their academics. Their parents sometimes come to me and say, Rishabh, ye tumne kya kar diya? And I look at them and I say, this is nothing to do with me, but this is something that is the trend nowadays. Is it important? Are degrees important? Or is it okay to go ahead and pursue your passion?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'll let you know what I've learned over time. I don't necessarily think that you always need a degree to get a particular job. But I think what pursuing an education gives you is discipline. It gives you the ability to prepare and work hard even at work when you don't feel like putting the hours in for a presentation. So the one thing that my degree, whether I studied English literature, but what that prepared me to do is to be able to write my ChatGPT type captions before ChatGPT, right? So I think it's important from that. I think there's a lot of careers that don't require a specific degree, but I also feel that we don't live in a world anymore that you have to only do one thing at a time. So even when I was working at the radio station and I was working at Channel V and doing the blog at the same time, I technically had 3 different jobs. So there's no reason why you can't do it all. And I always say, without the bitter, the sweet isn't as sweet. So you have to do some of the boring stuff to really enjoy the fun stuff.
So you need to have the bitter medicine before you enjoy the good medicine.
Otherwise you won't know.
Or before you enjoy the good food. Yes, but what I was trying to say is that, Malini, there are a lot of instances of young people who say that they aspire to become a Masum Minawala, they aspire to become you, and then they leave school education. They're school and college dropouts. Is it okay to be a school and a college dropout? Because a lot of these people look up to you. And what you say is like the gospel truth. Therefore, is it important for them to finish their 12th standard, or is it okay if they don't finish their 12th standard and 11th standard, they have 14 million followers, they're taking care of their family? Is that alright? Or do you think that you should finish your grade 12?
I think maybe I'll answer this slightly unorthodox way. I will ask you this question in return. Why are you giving up on the education because you are a content creator? Ask yourself honestly that question. Because if you're just doing it because there's an easy way out and now I'm making all this money, then you are playing a risky game, right? I'm a risk averse. I'm also Marwari, so I had to have an education and a day job. I think what's important is that, like they say, right, if something comes too easy, then it can also go away as easily. So it's really important, I think, fine, make hay while the sun shines, but always have something that you can rely on, that you can lean back on. And I think that's something education gives you. And I'm not here to preach about it, but I genuinely think it can be fun. Some of the things you learn and the experience you have, even more than anything else. People always talk about their favorite time in their life as the years they spent in school and college. Why? Because you're thrown together with people who you might love some, you might hate some, you might be indifferent to some, but they're the people who become your soul family, your network as you get older. Like I just went to visit the British school in Delhi where I studied. I graduated 30 years ago, that's how old I am. It's my 30-year reunion next year. But some of those people I'm still in touch with. And I like that jaw drop. That means you don't think I'm that old. Thanks. But it's really, it's an amazing place to make that network. And one thing I'll tell you as content creators, collaboration is key. Having people that are in your corner that support you, or even those 50 people who comment on everything that you say. Where do you find that first network? You find them in the classroom. You find them in the circles of your friendships. So much more than an education, I think it gives you that circle of friends and that support group.
Very well said. I've always believed that your network is your net worth. You've essentially defined that both in your career and so also, I believe in the book as well, you've defined this. And how important is it for young people to start building their network from now?
I think it's critical. And see, network isn't always just about, okay, what can I get out of someone down the line? It's creating that circle of trust and friendship. I've written about in this book this concept, I don't know if you've heard of a concept called the Dunbar Principle. So the Dunbar Principle says that cognitively as human beings, we are capable of remembering 1,500 faces at any given point in our life. And if you siphon that down further, everyone has heard this, right? You have 5 close friends, you have 50 friends, you have 150 acquaintances, and this is everyone, from family to people that you see every day, to teachers, to friends, to all of that. And these 1,500 people shift between these equations in your life, constantly through your life. So this network that you build is really what is going to keep you down the line in various ways. One, who are you going to go to for advice, right? You're not always going to go to your mom and dad. Maybe they're not the right people to give you that advice because you need a subjective opinion. Who are the people that are going to guide you or be those people that support you, and you will find those people. So I think that's really what it is. I think network is much more than just for work. I think it's really what we're here for. I believe that we're on this planet for 50, 80, maybe 500 years, apparently, according to some sources. If you're around for the next 5 years, you could live to be 500. But the point is, what are we here for, right? Aside from making money, fame, all of that. It's to interact with each other. There's a line from a movie I love called Moulin Rouge that says, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And that's the reason we're here, to be elated, fall in love, have your heart broken, have all these different experiences. That's what the human experience is about. And you only have that human experience when you connect with other humans. So I think that's why it's important.
The applause speaks for itself. But I must also ask you this, that you've been somebody who stayed ahead of the curve. You've been somebody who's been a trendsetter. You've been a person who essentially defines things in the industry. For a lot of people, in every class, there are, what I would like to believe, 5 Devi Vishwakumars, and the remaining are not Devi Vishwakumars. Which is why, to stay ahead of the curve, to be a trendsetter, what are those things that young people can do in order to set standards and norms and not follow them?
I mean, one, I'm super excited for you. This is my second book. In my first book, I wrote a letter to my 18-year-old self. And I told my 18-year-old self that you are so wealthy in the most valuable currency, which is time. And that's what you all have. You're sitting here with so much time, the wealth of time, to make mistakes, to fall in love, to make different career choices. You have ample time to do all of that right now. And one of the things that I always recommend is use this time wisely to learn, right? All through school and college, you pay to get an education. And after this, once you graduate, somebody's going to pay you to learn new skills. So I think it's super, super important to, just think about the fact that what is going to make you stand out? And this is what I tell people who want to be content creators as well. You might take inspiration for someone, or you might love somebody's content, but the reason why content creators stand out so much is there's something unique about them that makes them specifically them. Whether you like their quirky way of speaking or a particular line they say a lot or just their style. And remember, everybody has that. There is no carbon copy of you. We're not cloning yet, so far, you know? So I think it's just incredible to know that the best skill that you already have is your authenticity and your uniqueness. And I'm a great believer in staying ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. Be aware of what people are studying now. We're really just on the precipice of a huge change that's coming with artificial intelligence, with VR, and you're so lucky to be studying at a time where all of this is going to come into play. So I don't think you need that much advice from me. You are the future already. I look forward to hearing from you.
They're definitely the most empowered generation, and also the generation that can power up the country and the world. That is for sure. But in your book, Under the Influence, you have specifically written, and a lot of people say that it's a textbook manual for content creators. But from my glimpses of the book, there's much more to it. It's not just for content creators, it could be extrapolated into real life. What were your thoughts when you wrote the book, and who's the book for actually?
So it took me 4 years to write this book because I started writing it before the pandemic, and then I wondered if I had to change the whole thing, and then the pandemic came and went, so a lot happened. So I wrote this book for 2 reasons, and I'm gonna read you page 2 because it explains why I wrote the book, if you don't mind. Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Malini Agarwal, aka Miss Malini, and I guess I should begin by explaining why I'm writing this book at all, aside from the fact that I signed a 2-book deal with HarperCollins and they already paid me. Nobody ever taught me how to use social media. I think that was a mistake. Why, you may ask? Well, because believe it or not, I have been somebody's accidental troll too. Spoiler alert, read on to find out who. And if it can happen to me, it can surely happen to you. So I'm going to try and teach you all the things I wish someone had taught me before I signed up for my virtual reality. Consider this your unofficial textbook, a dummy's guide to being good online if you like. One that should, could, might just make it into our syllabus one day, and perhaps somehow help the learning curve for millennia to come. At least that's the dream. I'm really hoping that this book will help you, millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, or whatever we're calling the TikTok generation. Please let it not be the TikTok generation. Understand the mistakes I've made, the dopamine hits I've chased, because you might have chased them too. So, I think the one thing I want to say about this book is it is supposed to be a guide on how to be a good influencer, but also a good influence online. But I've really tried to explain it through all the mistakes I made, and I made plenty. And I also wanted to explain all the things that sometimes might bother you when you're sitting and doom scrolling on your phone sometimes. The things that you think only affect you, they've affected me too. If you don't mind, I'm going to read
Of course,
another passage from it. So Ronan Keating may have sung It's Only Words, and words are all I have to take your heart away, about love, but it's much the same for trolling. And somehow unkind words have a tendency to stick in our memory because we're secretly afraid they're true, or worse, we're secretly terrified others will think they're true. I'll give you a strange little example of my own. Many years ago, someone commented on a selfie I posted saying, Malini, before you post a selfie, you should get a nose job. I don't remember the poster. It was obviously no one I personally know or cared about. But since that day, and it's probably been over a decade, I religiously compare my nose to everyone else's in every close-up picture. And I don't like selfies. The truth is, it's juvenile, a random comment I shouldn't care about, vagera, vagera. I'm not proud of it, but I do. The comment hit a forever nerve. But what if all trolls aren't born trolls? What if they're ordinary people like you and me? Here's where it gets interesting. CNN conducted an online experiment identifying 2 key factors that lead to ordinary people exhibiting troll-like behavior. In their study of 667 people were given the same article to read and comment on. The first factor that likely impacted trolling was the person's current mood. Those in a negative state of mind were far more likely to say mean things. Trolling is also seen more like an after-dark activity, and peaks on Monday, declared the worst day of the week by the Guinness World Records in 2022, by the way. No wonder Monday's a troll. In addition, if the conversation about a topic was initiated by a troll comment, it's 2 times as likely to be trolled in return. Interestingly, mood and discussion context were together a much stronger indicator of trolling than identifying specific individuals as trolls. In other words, trolling is caused more by the person's environment than any inherent trait. And I'll give you a little example of how I might have accidentally trolled some people, not knowing at all that I was doing it. So I'll tell you another funny kind of story. But you can laugh, it's okay, enough time has passed. Comedy is just tragedy plus time anyway. For the longest time, I believed that LOL was short for lots of love. Now this is a harmless enough mistake, right? But imagine responding to a tragic text message about a dead relative, thinking I've said, I'm sorry for your loss, lots of love, with prayer hands emoji. Which, by the way, might have been a high five by the emoji designers, when in fact I seem to have said, I'm sorry for your loss, laughs out loud, high five. Still deeply mortified about this.
The various interpretations of LOL. But, and it's, again, one of the things that you're seeing in the role models that are coming and speaking to you is that they're showing you all their frailties. They're showing you that they do make mistakes. And from those mistakes, they become better, they learn. Malini, what has been the biggest mistake, if I may, of your life when it comes to making the brand Miss Malini? And how did you deal with that adversity?
So that's a great question, and I've unpacked a lot of the mistakes I've made in this book. But I think the biggest mistake I made, honestly, was this huge amount of self-doubt that I don't know who Miss Malini is, because when I started off, there was no concept of content creator, influencer. I just really liked the idea of documenting an industry. I love Bollywood and fashion and lifestyle, and I wanted to write about it in a positive way, without the negativity, without the tabloid culture, and say, I'm just going to write about the things that I love about entertainment. And I couldn't find anyone else who was doing it. So I had a huge identity crisis. I'm like, I'm not a Bollywood actor. I'm not a Kim Kardashian. I didn't study fashion. I didn't study beauty. So am I an imposter? Like, what am I doing here? Nobody's done it. That means it doesn't make sense. And that was the biggest mistake, thinking that you have to do something somebody has already done for it to have value. And that's what I learned. I realized that I was filling a gap of being a voice and being someone who loves Bollywood culture but may not necessarily be an actor, and be someone who is so happy to share everything that she loves about her life and document it on social media. What does this sound like today? Content creator, but that didn't exist then. And I'm very glad that somehow, even though I had self-doubt and imposter syndrome every day doing it, I was like, I'm just going to give it one more day. I'm just going to give it one more day. And here we are now. So I think the biggest mistake we sometimes make is listen to that little voice in our head. And I heard this from this amazing lady, Wendy Clark, who is an ex-CEO of one of the biggest ad agencies, DDB Mudra internationally. And she said that we all live with a little roommate in our head who has this voice of doubt that says, you can't do it, you don't look good, you don't know what you're doing. And what you have to do is separate that voice and imagine that it's a person you live with, that you take care of, but it's not you. So when you leave the house, you leave them at home. And then you come back and love them and nurture them and help them, but you don't carry them around with you.
Don't doubt yourself, is what she's saying. And Malini, I must ask you this, because a lot of students after college, like I said, and in college, also want to be content creators. Now, content creators there are various content creators and there's various domains in various fields, but the thing is that if there are companies for almost all domains, all walks of life. At college fair, you see a McKinsey picking up people, you see an Ernst & Young picking up people, but there is no booth for content creators. If you were to create India's first booth for content creators and opportunities that come for content creators, what would that booth contain?
So, and funny you say that because we actually are doing that. What I'm trying to do, we got acquired by Good Lab Group after 15 years, so we launched a new company called Good Creator Co., which is the largest ecosystem for creators. And what we try to do is give anyone who aspires to be a creator a chance to be a roving reporter, which is basically joining a creator squad, to, depending on what you like, whether it's sports or music or dance or food or fashion, to go and start covering events and documenting it. But we do it a little differently, where I want you to put it up on your social media and use that lovely collab feature that Instagram has and collab it with the Miss Malini trending handle. So there are opportunities like this. I think the most important thing to remember, and I did the same thing, when I started as Miss Malini, it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't a line of work that anyone would, allow, me to just stop and do. So I had a full-time job for 2 years while I was creating content on the side. And the funny story is my mom, who was 85 at the time, 5 years ago, still used to say that Malini is an internet blogger. She didn't know what a blogger was. So she was like, regular people get so much spam, so celebrities must get double, so she blocks their spam. So I don't know what she thought I did exactly at work. So that's what she thought, but I think it's important to remember that that booth at job fair will come, 100%. But you don't have to wait for that booth. That's the beautiful thing about content creation. You can do it from your house all day, anytime, as long as you do something alongside that allows you to have integrity and authenticity creating content. The one reason I would deter anyone from dropping everything and making content creation your only job is then you will have to make compromises because you'll have to pay the bills. The greatest thing I was able to do for myself is that my bills were paid from my day job, so I could choose what I wrote about. And I still remember after a year of writing content, my first collab was a pair of Levi's jeans, and I was so excited that they're giving me a pair of jeans to write about. It was like in 2008 or something. So it was never about the money. So that's the main thing. Empower yourself with the freedom to say, I don't want to write about this, or I don't find this interesting because I don't have to do it because it doesn't pay my bills.
The freedom to choose what you want to do, and that choice is something that as young people sometimes we don't get. We are told what needs to be done, both in school and growing up. But there are those shining beacons of hope who we call, or I call, role models. People who we look at and then say that, I want to emulate what Rahul Dravid did. I want to emulate what Kumar Birla did. These are role models for me personally. And therefore, today you are somebody who is a role model for so many young people. Who has been your role model and how did you select your role model?
So I don't think there's just been one, I think there have been so many through the years. There have been, in fact, I think my first role model, so my first job was a backup dancer. I was a backup dancer for this indie pop singer called Sukhbir. I'm sure you've heard of him, for 6 years. And my choreographer at that time, Ronika Jacob from Delhi, she was just the first boss lady I ever came in contact with. Now, it's usually in a career like dancing, you don't think of boss ladies, but she ran the business. She would make sure everyone was safe. She, got everyone's bills paid. I remember I used to get 2,000 rupees a show. Back in the day, it was a lot of money. So I think there have been different people over the years. My sister is one of my biggest role models. She's a lawyer. She lives in London. She's the reason I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, but then my parents said, don't do that. That's too risky. But over the years, so many people, but I think more and more now, I find so many inspiring people on social media, whether they are spreading positivity or they're bringing me a piece of joy. And that's the piece of advice I'll give you about your social media. 2 things. One, if you are a content creator, think about when people come to your feed, do they leave happier or sadder than when they came? And 2, think about the people you follow and think about how you feel before and after you consume their content. And slowly, do a little spring cleaning of the ones that don't make you feel good. Even if they have a lot of followers, even if they have so much fame, if they're making you feel bad about yourself or making you feel undue amounts of FOMO, then maybe that's not the right time to follow them. And I'm going to read you just the last page of the book because it's not the kind of book that ruins the story. But this is an important thing, a lesson that I learned. So occasionally people ask me what it feels like to be famous. And truth be told, I don't think of myself as famous, but I understand the question. I guess I've accomplished some stuff that has resulted in a certain level of positive infamy for sure. And don't get me wrong, I low-key love it. But I'm not famous, and I kind of like it that way, and I'll tell you why. When fame fades, and it always does, people might point at you as you go by and say, oh look, there goes so-and-so, they used to be someone famous. But they won't say that about someone who has accomplished something. Nobody can take away your accomplishments. They'll always have to say, look, there goes so-and-so, this is what she accomplished. Fame is fleeting, but nobody can take away your accomplishments. And when you're less worried about losing something, you're a lot nicer about letting other people have it too. So my advice to you, hand on heart, is spend a little more time on the internet trying to accomplish something and worry less about trying to be famous or ripping apart someone who already is. And you'll find that you live in a kinder world. To quote an epic quote you've probably heard me say so many times because it's the truest thing I've ever heard, you don't need to unscrew anybody else's light bulb to shine.
And you can be the light bulb, and like you rightly said, you can be the light bulb for so many people in and around you.